This is a Path to Nowhere beginner's guide in 2023. And so to start, we should talk about, well, Path to Nowhere. Path to Nowhere is a tower defense game that plays somewhat similar to Arknights, in that you have different lanes with enemies that you must defend against with your various characters, sinners in this game. But it has some notable differences that completely change the way you play and helps keep Path to Nowhere feeling unique rather than just another Arknights clone. So let's talk about them and the basic gameplay of Path to Nowhere. So the first difference between the two is the team size. You can only have 6 characters in your team. This means that each and every character or sinner you run in a team is very important. It's also an even bigger thing when you realize you cannot redeploy sinners. That means that once a sinner dies, they're dead. Yes, when a sinner dies, they're dead. Mind-blowing stuff, I know. But now this means that firstly, those 6 sinners in your team are even more important, as you won't be able to bring them back indefinitely. And it also means that healers in this game are especially useful, as you don't want anyone dying. The third big difference between the two is that you are free to move your sinners around the map, usually like 30 times or so. And now this means that firstly, if there are many enemies in one lane, and you feel like they may break through, you can easily switch sinners and help out there. It also helps out a lot, as some bosses in the game have telegraphed attacks that will show a red outline, giving you time to move your sinners out of the way, kinda like an MMO. This further emphasizes the sort of fast-paced reaction-based gameplay that Path to Nowhere is going for. But now there is one more mechanic that I should mention to new players, and that is core breaks. So you may face certain enemies with these core-like things below their HP bar, and using certain sinners' abilities as well as chief skill, more on the chief skill later, you'll be able to break through these cores, allowing you and your allies to deal much more damage. This is a mechanic seen in other games like Octopath Traveler, where once you've broken the core, you'll really be able to damage the enemy. And so by having this mechanic, it means you always have to make sure you always have a few sinners in your team that can break these cores. So that's it for the basic gameplay of Path to Nowhere, as well as the overall differences between Path to Nowhere versus Arknights. But now I want to mention something that's arguably the most important thing in this video. If there's something you take away, it's this, and that is the newbie mission, or the 14-day mission thing. So once you install the game, you'll get this sort of newbie mission, beginner mission thing, in which you'll have 14 days to complete. And upon completion, you'll gain access to the best, yes, the best sinner in the game, Nox. So make sure you get these missions done, and you get Nox, because you will 100% regret it if you don't get Nox. Nox is amazing. She can be used in almost all content in the game, and so make sure you get her. So we've talked about the basic gameplay, but let's talk about another extremely important thing in the game, and that's the sinners, the characters in the game. So the sinners are divided up into 3 ranks: B rank, A rank and S rank sinners, and 6 classes, which are Endurer, Fury, Umbra, Reticle, Arcane, and Catalyst. So what do these classes do? Well, Endurer are your defenders, your tanks. They're the ones who are going to be soaking up all the damage and holding down the lanes. Fury characters are the sinners armed with both decent defense and decent attack. Think the Guard class from Arknights. These characters are decent at holding lanes and will deal a lot of damage. In fact, they are usually preferred over the Endurer class to use in your team. Nox, the sinner from the beginner mission, newbie mission thing, is a Fury character. So that should give you a good idea of how good this class is. Next, we have the Umbra characters. Now, Umbra characters are quite unique. They play like an assassin class. They're experts in dealing core damage. That's the thing that's really important in this game. They go in, deal core damage, deal damage, and get out. They're very useful against bosses, as bosses usually have a ton of cores to break. So, very important. Reticle class are pretty much the sniper class in the game. They're the long range sinners that primarily deal physical damage and kill the enemy before they reach your team. Arcane are your mages. They deal magic damage and are especially useful against bosses or mobs that have low magic defense, and so it's always worth checking what enemy you'll be facing so you can properly decide if you need the arcane magic damage. Finally, the Catalyst sinners are your healers, your support class, that are going to be helping your team by not only healing but providing various buffs that help your team. Now, these sinners come with 4 skills: the basic attack, the ultimate, which you activate, and 2 passives. They also have a sort of third passive thing that gets unlocked once you hit phase 3, which is kind of like the ascension ranks in this game, and it's called the Mania Intensify, but more on that later. So with these sinners, you can level them up using 2 main currencies, Discoins and Mania Essence. Both these currencies can be farmed in the various resource stages you have. Once you get enough of these, you'll be able to phase them up, which is like ascending in other gacha games, increasing the stats and providing extra abilities for your sinner. Now, something important to note is that this does take a lot of resources, so definitely decide wisely. Don't willy-nilly this, as it will take you a lot of time to farm these resources up, so prioritizing sinners that can be brought into any team and are just really good will be very valuable to get. And later in this guide, I'll tell you which ones you should phase 3 immediately. But now, alongside leveling your sinners up, you'll also be able to increase their skill levels. These take even more resources, sadly. Next, you have the Shackles. These are pretty much your dupe whale thing. So when you pull for sinners, if you already have the sinner, you'll get a dupe, which can be used to unlock a shackle that goes up to a maximum of 5. So 5 total dupes to get all the shackles. Now, there are other ways to get these shackles through the Oblivion Pit, which is like the in-game mode, but more on that later. Moving on, we reach the Crimebrands. So these are pretty interesting. These are somewhat similar to artifacts from Genshin or memories from Punishing Grey Raven. They pretty much give additional stats to your sinner and can have set bonuses that massively increase stats. Now, these are really fun as they add a bit of customizability, bit of build planning to your sinners, and as the game goes on, more will be added, which means more and more builds. Nice. Now, the last thing to talk about sinners is their exclusive Crimebrands. So these are unique Crimebrands that you can unlock upon reaching phase 3 and heavily change the way you play the sinner. These can offer a huge stat increase, a new ultimate, a new passive. Overall, these are really good to get and really important for the character. So there's a lot of things to do with sinners, but which sinners should you focus on? Which sinners should you invest into? Well, let me tell you the best, mostly free-to-play sinners you should focus on. So first up, for the Fury class, of course, you should focus on Nox, the one you get from the beginner mission. She's the best character in the game and my personal choice on who you should immediately phase 3 first when you get the chance to. Now, for the Umbra class, going for Labyrinth will be your best option, as not only is she one of the best characters in the game with her infinite potential for core breaks and relatively high damage for B rank, but she's free to play. For the Reticle class, going for EMP will be very good. She's free to play, really strong, deals core damage, overall a good option for the phase 3. For Arcane, there's a few options. Luvia Ray is really good, but overall I would recommend another free to play character, and that's Hecate. She's really good, especially at phase 3 where you gain access to not only her exclusive Crimebrand, which is really good to hold lanes, but the fact that she can break 2 cores, has magic penetration. Overall, she's really good. Best catalyst for a beginner to phase 3 would be Ariel. She isn't free to play, you will have to pull for her, but she's really good. By far the best semi free to play catalyst sinner in the game right now, and so I highly recommend investing into her when you get the chance. If you haven't managed to get her during your beginner pulls, going for someone like Anne or Macchiato are decent alternatives. Now finally, for the Endura class, honestly I wouldn't worry too much about phase 3 and Endura Sinner as they are rather weak in the current meta of PathtoNowhere, so I would instead focus on the other classes first. And now, just before we talk about the shop, I want to touch on some of the smaller things in this game. So firstly, this game does have a guild system. They call it Secret Society. So in Secret Societies, you'll be able to donate various currencies such as Discoins and Hypercubes. Again, Hypercubes are one of the premium currencies, so if you're free to play, definitely do not use this. Use Discoins instead. Once you donate to your Secret Society, you'll gain some command XP and you'll gain some contribution points that can be used in the shop. More on that later. You'll also be able to request certain resources that can be used on your sinners to level them up and phase them up, and in the upcoming patches you will also be able to play the Tides of Ashes Secret Society game mode, but I'll make another guide on that once it gets released. You also of course have friends that can send you friendship points that can be used in the shop. Here you'll find some missions that you can complete in each story chapter that will give you rewards, and one of these rewards are the Rhine cores, and these can be used in this icon and is used to upgrade the chief's skill. So I briefly mentioned this before, but in battle your chief, the sort of person controlling the sinners, will be able to use a skill which can impact the battle quite a bit. So there are a lot of chief skills. The main ones that you should use and level up first are firstly Empower. This one will restore energy to your sinners, and this is a skill that I use 95% of the time in almost every map. It is that good, so definitely prioritize this. After Empower, I would recommend Last Stand and Heal to level up. Next, we have the base system of PathtoNowhere. So as you progress through the story, you'll be able to build out this base, and pretty much every day you come here to collect your various resources. And you don't have to worry about managing sinner's stamina or anything like that. Thank God. Next, you have the burrow. This is where you can dispatch your sinners on missions and where you can claim daily stamina. So make sure you come here every day. But now let's talk about the shop and some things you should be wary of. So firstly, we have the featured pack tab. This will feature mini packs that can be purchased and will contain various resources to level up your sinners, and also arrest warrants. So arrest warrants are used to summon sinners. But the main thing to look out in this section is firstly the daily free supply that you should be collecting every day, and also if you are a light spender, then the Black Key VIP, which is the monthly card of the game, is really good. Next we have the attire tab. This is where you purchase the various skins and outfits in the game. Nice. Moving on, we have the exchange tab, which brings up many smaller tabs. So firstly, the arrest exchange tab is where you'll spend the currency you gain from dupes in this game. This is divided into both arrest credit standards, which are from the B rank sinner dupes, and arrest credit confidential, which is from the A rank sinners and above. These can be used to purchase additional arrest warrants, various resources, and even for the arrest credit confidentials, things like an S rank character that gets refreshed monthly. Also sinners marks, which are used to unlock shackles. So very important stuff. Moving down, we reach the battle medal section, which is from one of the in-game modes, Broken Frontline. Here you can purchase various Crimebrands and chests that you can get resources from that are used to level a sinner skill very high, i.e. more than 7. Alliance is the next tab, which is obtained from donating to your guild or secret society, and you can get some decent stuff from here. Next is the friendship tab, which is from your friends, so make sure you add a lot of friends so you can purchase everything from here. Next tab is the sample, which uses a currency obtained from one of the in-game modes, Oblivion Pit, and can be used to purchase some very good stuff like Sinner's Marks, which are used for Shackles, and Soul Marks, which are used for exclusive Crimebrands, as well as 2 Sinners, Chameleon and Macchiato. Nice. Finally, depending on when you watch this video, there may be also a event shop, so be wary of that. And the last tab is the crystal supply tab, which is where you purchase the premium currency of the game, and your first purchase will give you 2 times the crystals. Now finally, this is a beginner's guide. I want to quickly touch on the in-game, as you can actually start it pretty early as it gets progressively harder as you level. So we right now have 2 modes, Oblivion Pit and Broken Frontline. Now Oblivion Pit firstly refreshes daily, so try to do this every day, and we'll have you go down a pit in which the enemies get progressively harder the further down you go. But this doesn't get too hard, as once you're phase 3 a couple of characters, you should be able to do this daily in the lowest depth, no problem. Now, like I mentioned during the shop section of this guide, the Oblivion Pit rewards are very good, so make sure to do this daily. Now, Broken Frontline is what I would consider the true in-game. It refreshes weekly. It's a boss mode in which each day you'll be able to kill a boss that has 3 difficulty levels, and if you reach a certain point threshold, you get to move up to the next tier. 3 tiers in total right now. Now this is hard and it will take you a lot of work, a lot of leveling your sinners to reach that highest tier and get the highest amount of points. But now that is it for this beginner's guide. I pretty much covered all that you need to know if you want to start out in PathtoNowhere. And so if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.